Welcome to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. This is Chris Miller. I invite you to join me as I interview artists from a variety of disciplines. We'll share powerful stories and lessons learned while making their art. Good day. You're listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. This is Chris Miller, your host. How are you today? I wanted to follow up on a recent podcast that I did about being okay in the hallway and talk about serendipity and synchronicity. Um, so, if you remember that podcast, I talked about letting yourself be in the hallway. And I talked about how I was with a friend and I was explaining to her that at this time of my life, due to a situation from COVID and job changes, I felt like I was kind of in the hallway. And I was telling you, the listener, to just relax into that and know that you're in the hallway. Let's talk about that. So, when I shared that thought, a friend recommended a book to me, and I mentioned it in my last podcast. And the book is called Hell in the Hallway, Light at the Door by Ellen Debenport. Now, I'll tell you what, my friend gave me this book and I resisted it. I took it home, sat it on my side table, and ignored it for a couple weeks because, to be honest with you, I'm not a keen person on the word hell. It just is a trigger point for me. I don't want to include it in my vocabulary. But I did start to read it, and I found as I read that it's a great book. And so I will recommend this to you, the listener. Go out and buy a copy of Hell in the Hallway, Light at the Door by Ellen Debenport. Pretty appropriate book right now after COVID. But I want to share some thoughts of what I discovered in it, and probably the most interesting aspect of the book itself. I found this one line of text, and it talks about prayer. And it says that prayer is focused thought that moves energy. Prayer is focused thought that moves energy. And that's such an interesting concept. Some people might have a trigger with the word prayer. So instead of thinking prayer, you could say intention. Intention. So if you're uncomfortable with the word prayer, remember that you can set an intention of thought that moves energy. So that was a really interesting concept for me. And so as I wrestled with my being in the hallway, I want to share a little story first, and just to show you how spirit, a greater power, whatever you want to talk about, is always listening. And when you set an intention, you will get an answer. So I shared this with a friend of mine, and she did a prayer with me, Peggy, last week, or actually earlier this week, and it was last weekend. And we did a prayer that I thought was really interesting. She held the intention that I would get an answer to my questions. I would hear an answer to my questions. It seems like a strange prayer, but basically, Ellen Debenport repeats that in this book. And she quotes this wonderful prayer intention of to say this: reveal what needs to be revealed and heal what needs to be healed. So I'm going to repeat that. If you are in the hallway and you're not quite sure what's going on or what the next step is, maybe you just need to process some things for a while. We all experience that in any time of transition, whether that is a job change, a relationship change, or even when you're dealing with a painting or a piece of art. Sometimes you don't know what the next step is. I always teach you to listen for that inspired next step, but sometimes you're just not getting it. So Ellen says to pray for reveal what needs to be revealed and heal what needs to be healed. So I did that with Peggy, and we said, let's reveal what Chris needs to hear right now. The interesting thing was we sent that intention, and not just the next day, the next morning, I got an answer. And so what's so amazing about this, I'm always amazed by the fact that spirit can speak to us. But in this case, I was so amazed with the clarity of listening and getting an answer. So I had prayed for some direction. And as you know, every morning I read something from an inspiring book. And in this case, it was actually the same book, Hell in the Hallway, Light at the Door. And I prayed for some direction. And Ellen uses real life scenarios in the book. She talks about people and talks about their situation. And I kid you not, the next morning I got up, I did my meditation, I opened my book, and I read the next chapter. And sure enough, the actual scenario in the book, exactly, word for word, exactly resonated with what I was asking, with an answer of how to react to that situation. So, what is amazing to me is spirit is always talking to you, but it comes in different ways. Sometimes it's an intuitive thought that jumps in your head. Sometimes it's an intuitive thought that reacts physically, like you feel a way out. And sometimes it can be actual word for word in an inspiring book because we talk about this. I believe a greater power spirit is in all things, everything. We are all connected. Everything contains spirit. And so that message can come through another person, another experience, or word for word in a book. So I just wanted to share that with you today that it's a good idea. If you're wrestling with something today, if you are still in the hallway, and it's great to be in the hallway, do that. Do a prayer for reveal what needs to be revealed. And so, one other thing I wanted to share with you in Ellen's book is she lists some steps here when you're in the hallway. So, if you're in the hallway right now, if you're feeling like you're not sure what to do or you're just processing, here's a couple things to remember. Don't skip the grieving. Let yourself process the emotions. You can't jump out of the hallway. You can't push it out. And when you say reveal what needs to be revealed, you can't rush it. And another one of her steps is expect delays. Expect delays. Sometimes the answer takes a while. Now, I was lucky. I got the answer the very next day, but I'm not promising you that. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes years to get an answer to something. But so there is a process involved. Also, accept where you are, surrender to it. This is where I am now. This is how I feel. This is the situation. I'm good here. I'm okay here. It's all right to be here. Third, which some people have a tricky thing, is take responsibility for being there. And by responsibility, that doesn't mean you caused it. That doesn't mean you caused something bad to happen to you. What it means is that you sit there and you listen and you say, what is in this situation for me? What can I gain from this situation? I take responsibility that I'm here to grow, to learn, and I'm going to be there. The fourth is willing to forgive. So if resentment is holding you back, you need to hold an intent to see the situation or person differently. And I think that goes back to reveal what needs to be revealed, being open to reviewing and re-seeing the situation in a different way. And finally, don't get stuck asking for guidance. Don't sit there and just say, send it to me that way. Also, so what it means when you say don't get stuck asking for guidance, it's okay to ask other people. I went to Peggy. I went to someone else to hold the space for me, to hold the space for me. And that is okay to do. Some of you might know I'm a licensed spiritual coach. People set up sessions with me for just that reason, because sometimes they feel so out of it. They feel in the hallway. They need someone else to hold the spiritual truth for them. So as you go out into your creative studio today, life, I want you to practice that intention. Practice that intention and reach out and pray or hold that thought and say to this world, reveal what needs to be revealed to me in this and heal what needs to be healed. I set the intention, intentional attention to hearing what needs to be revealed. So have a great day. Have a great week. Know that the answer is always there and it's coming to you in a myriad of ways. And be open to hearing that answer. So once you set that intention, just release it and listen. Listen for the answer. Talk to you soon. Take care and enjoy being a spiritual artist.